than the setup that got Jill and Parker. It was all...
This thing is lucky to be afloat.
He's turning guppies into jaws.
Shh. My sweet ass are on the way!
Resident Evil has gone a long way from its survival horror roots with the 5th and 6th entries and being slanted more towards the run and gun and combat and action. The series has lost touch with what made it great, and in the first place it was broadened in its fan appeal and at the cost of the expectations of the loyal fans and gamers. And while the Resident Evil Nintendo 3DS release met much praise, it didn't justify it HD re-release for the consoles. And was it worth looking into if you missed it the first time around? And the majority of Revelations, it takes place on the Queen Zenobia, a sprawling luxury cruise liner designed in the 1960s by the famed architect George Trevor, and the atmosphere is quite similar in most part to that of the original Spencer estate and the original Resident Evil, with its decor and gloomy corridors. And along with the other few characters, you play as Jill in assisting in the emergence of power in the BSAA and fending off the terrorist group of Vetra in their acts against humanity shortly after the events Resident Evil 4. And the clumsy, convoluted story also includes pacing-breaking elements that put the player on land from time to time, from snowy mountains to the futuristic office buildings. These portions of the narrative detract from the excellent atmosphere of the rest of the game, and the dialogue of much of the supporting cast is painful. Had the game kept its focus on survival horror rather than these out-of-place action pieces, and the flow and the immersion of the story would have been substantially better. As with the terrific atmosphere of the Zenobia, the music makes a return to form as well, providing a tense and moody ambient music throughout most of the game. Revelations was a standout amongst its peers, and visually when it was released on the 3DS, unfortunately its port to the big screens wasn't treated with the respect it deserved. And while the game doesn't look terrible, it certainly doesn't come anywhere near the standard of 5 or 6 set graphically, and that brings up the price point, considering the HD re-releases of Code Veronica and Resident Evil 4 were both $20. It's perplexing that Capcom would re-release Revelations for $50, which is a higher price than it originally cost on the 3DS, and this decision is hard to justify. This version of the cruise liner from hell does come with a few changes though, and the menus and user interface have been improved to go along with the larger screen size, and a new enemy with an underwhelming name, the Wall Blister, a name that really pierces the soul with the terror that it conveys, has been added to the game as well, and it appears to be a mutation mixing the Hunter betas from Resident Evil 3 Nemesis along with the Bandersnatches of Code Veronica. They're an interesting enemy, but don't add anything significant to the gameplay. Hell mode has been removed in favor of a reworked Inferno difficulty that will provide a more than rewarding challenge to survivors ready for veteran players, and the gameplay and combat is similar to that of the other third-person entries in the series for the most part, albeit with a few key differences. You'll have a partner follow you through the duration of the campaign, but for some reason can only be controlled by the AI, and the Plagas have been replaced with a more zombie-like enemy, and this time manufactured by the T-Abyss virus, an aquatic version of the T-virus, and infected seemingly lose their skeletal structure and take up the appropriate moniker of ooze. And this allows them to travel through vents and drains and sneaking up on the player, really creating a lot of tense situations that you don't want to be in. And the occasional boss fights are strong and provide challenging set pieces that can stall progression if not adequately prepared, while files to flesh the backstory return. The puzzles from the classic game are missing. And the only attempt to bring these into the game is those door hacking sessions, and they're not very hard at all. At most, they only took me 25 minutes to solve, whereas the older games, I would spend months on, flipping switches on paintings and torches and other things, and I was really disappointed that I was able to beat these within a day. A first-person perspective scanning device called the Genesis, similar to those seen in Metal Gear Solid, when Snake talks about the occasional use of nanotechnology to map out, the human condition in the machines. And they can help you find various assortment of herbs, ammo, and custom parts, and that creates, distracting but it's a very interesting metagame that you put in it. And the weapons provided in the game complement the usual flair seen in the previous titles, with a few options of handguns and shotguns and machine guns and rifles. And the weapons can also be upgraded, similar to Metal Gear Solid, with various parts found throughout the ship that range from increasing damage to like a Mega Buster, and it makes the enemies not quite as scary when you're running around with a gun that does a lot more damage. So I like it. And despite its weak story, it's not quite as good as Metal Gear Solid in its immersion, but it's not too bad for a Resident Evil. It is not really the masterpiece that was Resident Evil Code Veronica, with the twist at the end of this, with O'Brien being working with the bad guy. It wasn't as shocking to me as when I found out that Alfred was actually Alexia, and then when you get all Alexia doesn't exist, you find out she does exist, and she wakes up after 15 years of sleep with the T Veronica virus. Additionally, Revelations has the inclusion of raid mode. That's like the Mercenaries mode. I won't go into that because Mercenaries was a little too hard. I didn't really beat any of the Resident Evil games per se, so I've only heard about them because they're usually playable after you've beaten it. Up to 2 players can go along with this, so I can get somebody that's better than me to pull me around the level, or carry me, if you will, and we can see if we can beat levels together. And you can rank up to, I've seen as high as a B. I believe there might be an A rank, but this is based on your performance and whether you live or die. But you always want to be a few levels higher than what it suggests, because they give you an achievement for doing it a little bit lower for a reason. It's a hard game. I've been working, and I'm about halfway through Chasm mode after about 17 hours. But the campaign altogether, it was a pretty good game. It's going to take you anywhere from 40 to 50 hours to complete the main story. But the Resident Evil Revelations is definitely a return to form for the series. It doesn't have quite as many attractive women, although I really thought the inclusion of Jessica in the game was a strong point, and I think that she's going to be a very prevalent character in the future, because of the fact that she is such a great deep character, and as Chris you feel like you can protect her. But the $50 asking price was a little unreasonable with the game, but I would give the game, probably a 9.8 out of 10.